The studio lights of The View glowed brighter than usual that morning. The audience had come expecting another lively discussion, another round of politics, culture, and celebrity stories. But no one, not the producers, not the hosts, not even the viewers watching from home, could have predicted the tension that was about to unfold between two powerful voices: media legend Oprah Winfrey and outspoken host Sunny Hostin. And what started as a routine interview would soon turn into one of the most talked-about moments in the history of the show. But before we dive into the drama, make sure you subscribe to Talk Battles, like this video, and drop a comment below, because this story only gets more intense from here. The camera slowly zoomed in as the hosts welcomed Oprah to the stage. The audience erupted in applause. After all, Oprah wasn't just another celebrity guest. She was a cultural force. Decades earlier, her groundbreaking show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, had changed television forever. From heartfelt confessions to life-changing giveaways, she had built a legacy rooted in empathy and power. Sunny leaned forward with a polite smile as Oprah took her seat. "Oprah," Sunny began, her voice calm but curious. "You've built an empire, from television to publishing to film. And now you're continuing to produce impactful stories. What keeps driving you after all these years?" Oprah smiled warmly. "Purpose," she said. "Storytelling has always been my purpose. Whether it's through books, films, or conversations, I believe stories help people understand each other." The audience nodded. For a moment, everything felt calm, almost inspirational. Oprah spoke about her recent work with Harpo Productions and the ongoing impact of her television network, OWN. She described her mission to elevate voices and bring meaningful conversations to the public. But Sunny's next question shifted the tone. "Some critics say," Sunny said slowly, "that powerful media figures, people like you, shape public opinion in ways that aren't always accountable. How do you respond to that?" The room grew quieter. Oprah paused. Her eyes, calm yet focused, locked onto Sunny. "Well," Oprah said gently, "I think influence comes with responsibility. And I've spent my career trying to use that influence for good." Sunny nodded, but she wasn't done. "But what about the criticism?" she continued. "That certain narratives get amplified while others are ignored." The tension became visible. Even the audience could feel it. Oprah leaned slightly forward. "I've never claimed to tell every story," she replied. "But I've always tried to tell the ones that matter, to the people living them." The conversation had shifted from friendly to probing. Sunny pressed further. "Do you think media figures sometimes avoid difficult truths because they might damage their brand?" Gasps murmured softly through the audience. One of the other hosts shifted in her chair. For the first time, Oprah's expression changed. Not anger, but intensity. "Sunny," she said quietly, "I spent my childhood in poverty. I've faced criticism, judgment, and scrutiny my entire life. If protecting a brand was my goal, I would have stayed silent about many things." The audience applauded. But Sunny didn't back down. "That may be true," she said. "But critics argue that when someone becomes as powerful as you, the conversation changes. You're no longer just telling stories, you're shaping history." The words hung in the air like thunder waiting to strike. Oprah leaned back slightly. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she smiled. But this time, the smile carried weight. "Let me tell you something," she said calmly. "When I was a young girl in Mississippi, I didn't even own a pair of shoes for school. The idea that one day I'd be sitting here, discussing influence and power, would have sounded impossible." The audience fell silent. Oprah continued, "My life has never been about power. It's been about possibility." The crowd erupted into applause again, but the tension between the two women remained. Sunny nodded thoughtfully. "Your journey is inspiring," she said. "But inspiration and accountability can exist at the same time." Oprah's eyes narrowed just slightly. And in that moment, viewers at home could sense it. This conversation wasn't ending anytime soon. The cameras rolled. The producers watched nervously from backstage. And the discussion was about to become far more intense than anyone had planned. Because what Sunny asked next would spark a confrontation that would ripple across social media, news outlets, and living rooms around the world. And Oprah, known for her calm wisdom, was about to respond in a way the audience would never forget. The tension in the studio of The View didn't disappear after the applause faded. If anything, it thickened like the air before a thunderstorm. Cameras continued rolling, red lights glowing silently above them, capturing every expression, every pause, every shift in body language. Across the table sat Oprah Winfrey, a woman who had spent decades mastering the art of conversation. Interviews, confessions, life-changing moments, she had seen them all. But today, something about this exchange felt different. Opposite her, Sunny Hostin leaned forward slightly, her hands resting on the table. Sunny was known for asking sharp questions, for pushing discussions deeper when others might stop. And right now, she clearly wasn't planning to stop. The audience sensed it too. A quiet murmur drifted through the room as Sunny adjusted the stack of cue cards in front of her. "Oprah," she began again, her voice steady but deliberate, "you've spent decades shaping conversations in America. From social issues to personal struggles, millions of people trusted your voice." Oprah nodded calmly. "That trust means everything to me," she replied. Sunny tilted her head slightly. "But some critics say," she continued, "that influence like yours can sometimes blur the line between storytelling and authority." A few audience members exchanged glances. Oprah remained composed, but her expression grew thoughtful. "Authority," she repeated gently. "Yes," Sunny said, "because when someone with your reach speaks, it can change public perception instantly. Some say that kind of influence should come with a different level of scrutiny." For a moment, the studio seemed to hold its breath. Oprah clasped her hands together, her voice calm but firm. "Sunny," she said, "every storyteller carries responsibility. I've always believed that." She paused, letting her words settle. "But I've never claimed to be perfect. I've simply tried to create space for conversations that matter." The audience applauded softly. Sunny acknowledged the applause with a nod, but her gaze stayed locked on Oprah. "I respect that," she said. "But the conversation today is also about impact. Your work through OWN, your book club, your interviews, those things influence culture." Oprah smiled slightly. "That was always the hope." Sunny continued. "Your book club alone has turned unknown authors into global sensations. Your interviews have shaped political and cultural debates. That level of influence is extraordinary." Oprah leaned back, reflecting. "I never imagined any of that when I started," she said softly. Her voice carried a hint of nostalgia now. "When I first stepped onto the set of the Oprah Winfrey Show in the 1980s, all I wanted was to create a space where people felt seen." The audience responded warmly to that memory. But Sunny's next words cut through the moment. "Yet some people believe," she said carefully, "that when a media figure becomes that powerful, the public has a right to question the narratives being presented." The room went quiet again. Oprah studied Sunny for a moment. Not with hostility, but with intensity. "You know what's interesting?" Oprah said slowly. "What's that?" Sunny asked. "People often talk about power like it's something you wake up one day and decide to have." The audience listened closely. "But power," Oprah continued, "usually grows from something else: pain, struggle, resilience." Her voice softened as she spoke about her past. Growing up in poverty in Mississippi, facing hardships most people couldn't imagine, and somehow turning those experiences into a career built on empathy and storytelling. "I've always believed my job was to help people feel less alone," Oprah said. Sunny nodded respectfully. "No one doubts your journey," she said. "But with great influence comes questions. That's the nature of public conversation." For the first time, Oprah leaned forward again. Her tone changed, still calm, but stronger now. "Sunny," she said, "questions are healthy. Debate is healthy." The audience leaned in. "But what matters," Oprah continued, "is whether those questions come from curiosity or from assumption." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Sunny raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying my question comes from assumption?" Oprah smiled slightly. "I'm saying that influence is rarely as simple as people make it sound." Sunny crossed her arms lightly. "Well," she said, "that's exactly why conversations like this matter." At the host table, the other panelists exchanged cautious glances. They could feel the conversation tightening like a knot. One of the producers behind the cameras whispered urgently to another. The interview had clearly gone off the usual path. But it was also becoming impossible to look away. Sunny flipped another card on the table. "Let me ask you something more personal," she said. Oprah tilted her head. "Go ahead." Sunny spoke carefully. "You've inspired millions of people around the world. But do you ever feel the pressure of living up to the image people have of you?" The question lingered. Oprah didn't answer immediately. Instead, she took a slow breath. "Yes," she finally said. The honesty surprised some people in the audience. "Yes," Oprah repeated. "Because when people see you as a symbol, they forget you're also human." The studio quieted even more. Sunny nodded. "That's an important point," she said. But some would argue that public figures benefit from that symbolism. Oprah's eyes sharpened slightly. And some, she replied calmly, forget that behind every symbol is a real life. A few audience members clapped softly again. The conversation had turned philosophical now, but the tension remained just beneath the surface. Sunny leaned forward one more time. So let me ask you directly, she said. The words were slow and deliberate. Do you believe media figures should be held accountable when their influence shapes public opinion? The question landed like a stone dropping into still water. For the first time since the interview began, Oprah's calm expression hardened. Not dramatically, but enough that the audience noticed. The studio fell completely silent, because everyone sensed it. Sunny had just pushed the conversation to its breaking point, and Oprah's response was about to change the entire atmosphere of the show. The silence inside the studio of The View felt heavier than ever before. Even the usual rustling from the audience had stopped. Every camera remained fixed on the two women at the center of the moment. On one side sat Oprah Winfrey, her posture upright, her expression calm but unmistakably serious now. Across from her, Sunny Hostin waited patiently, hands folded, clearly prepared for whatever answer was about to come. Sunny's question still echoed in the room. Do you believe media figures should be held accountable when their influence shapes public opinion? It wasn't just a question anymore. It was a challenge. For several seconds, Oprah didn't speak. The pause itself carried weight. Years of television experience had taught her that silence could sometimes say more than words. Finally, she leaned slightly forward. Yes, Oprah said firmly. The single word caught the audience by surprise. Yes, she repeated, her voice steady. Accountability matters. It always has. Sunny nodded slowly, as if expecting that answer. But accountability, Oprah continued, should apply to everyone in media, not just the people whose influence becomes visible. A soft ripple of murmurs moved through the audience. Sunny raised her eyebrows. Are you suggesting that some voices get questioned more than others? She asked. Oprah's gaze didn't shift. I'm suggesting that conversations about power often ignore the journey behind it. The tension between them had evolved now. It was no longer just an interview. It felt like a philosophical debate unfolding live on television. Sunny leaned forward slightly. But Oprah, she said, your journey is exactly why people look to you differently. You didn't just build a career, you built an empire. The audience nodded quietly. Sunny continued. You've influenced books through your famous reading club. You've produced films through Harpo Productions. And your network, OWN, has given a platform to stories that reach millions. She paused, letting the magnitude of those accomplishments settle. That level of reach means your voice carries enormous weight. Oprah listened without interrupting. Then she smiled slightly. Sunny, she said gently, let me tell you something I've learned after decades in television. The audience leaned in again. People often assume influence means control. She shook her head slowly. But influence isn't control. It's responsibility. Sunny tilted her head. And responsibility, Oprah continued, means understanding that no single voice should dominate the conversation. A few audience members clapped softly, but Sunny didn't retreat. In theory, that sounds wonderful, she replied. But the reality is different. Oprah raised an eyebrow. How so? Sunny glanced briefly toward the audience before looking back at Oprah. When someone reaches the level of trust you have, people treat your words almost like guidance. Oprah listened carefully. Sunny's voice grew more passionate now. Think about the millions who watch the Oprah Winfrey Show every day. For many of them, your voice wasn't just entertainment, it was authority. The crowd murmured again. Oprah folded her hands calmly. And is that a bad thing? She asked. Sunny paused. Not necessarily, she said. But it does mean that every message carries deeper consequences. Oprah's eyes softened slightly. You're right about one thing, she said. The audience quieted instantly. Every message matters. Her voice grew reflective. When I first started in television, I never imagined that millions of people would one day trust my perspective. That kind of trust isn't something you take lightly. Sunny nodded. So then we agree, she said. Oprah smiled faintly. Partially. The audience chuckled nervously. Sunny raised her eyebrow again. Only partially? Oprah leaned forward, her tone growing stronger. Because accountability should never turn into suspicion. The room grew still. When people constantly question someone's intentions simply because they have influence, Oprah continued, the conversation stops being about truth and starts becoming about doubt. The words hung in the air. Sunny studied Oprah carefully. "You think I'm questioning your intentions?" she asked. Oprah shook her head gently. "No, I think you're asking important questions." The audience exhaled collectively. "But I also think," Oprah continued, "that sometimes people forget the human being behind the public image." Her voice softened again. "You see a media icon. But before any of that, I was just a girl from Mississippi trying to tell stories." The sincerity in her voice filled the studio. For a brief moment, the tension eased. But Sunny wasn't finished. "There's something else people talk about," she said carefully. Oprah's expression grew curious. "What's that?" Sunny spoke slowly. "They say that when someone becomes as influential as you, the conversation shifts. It's no longer about whether your intentions are good. It's about how your influence shapes the world." The statement landed heavily. Oprah took a breath. Then she smiled. Not defensively, but knowingly. "You know what the real power of storytelling is?" she asked. Sunny waited. "It doesn't force people to think a certain way." The audience leaned closer. "It invites them to think." A quiet wave of applause rolled through the room. Sunny nodded thoughtfully. "That's a powerful perspective." Oprah looked around the studio, taking in the audience, the cameras, the energy of the moment. "But let me ask you something, Sunny," she said suddenly. Sunny looked slightly surprised. "Okay." Oprah's voice grew calm but deliberate. "Do you believe conversations like this bring people closer together or push them further apart?" The audience immediately reacted with curious murmurs. Sunny paused. For the first time during the interview, she seemed momentarily unsure. "Well," she said slowly, "that depends on how the conversation ends." Oprah leaned back in her chair. "And that," she said quietly, "is exactly the point." The studio remained silent for a few seconds. Then applause slowly began spreading through the audience. But even as the clapping grew louder, the energy in the room felt unresolved. Because everyone watching, both in the studio and at home, could sense that the story wasn't finished yet. The emotional impact of this exchange was only beginning. Soon the cameras would stop rolling. The audience would leave. But the conversation between Oprah and Sunny would explode across social media, news outlets, and talk shows everywhere. And what happened after the broadcast would be just as dramatic as what happened on stage. The applause inside the studio of The View slowly faded, but the emotional energy in the room refused to settle. Cameras were still rolling, capturing every second of what had already become one of the most intense exchanges the show had seen in years. At the center of it all sat Oprah Winfrey and Sunny Hostin, two powerful voices from two different generations of media influence. The conversation had moved far beyond a typical celebrity interview. Now it felt personal, real, unpredictable. Sunny sat quietly for a moment after Oprah's last question. The audience could sense the shift. For the first time since the conversation began, Sunny wasn't immediately responding. Instead, she seemed to be weighing her words carefully. "Well," Sunny finally said, her voice softer now, "I believe conversations like this are uncomfortable, but necessary." The audience murmured in agreement. Sunny continued, "Because when people with influence sit down and actually talk about power, responsibility, and storytelling, viewers learn something real." Oprah listened calmly, her expression thoughtful. "I agree with that," Oprah replied. Her tone had softened too. "But I also believe something else." Sunny tilted her head slightly. "What's that?" Oprah glanced briefly toward the audience before answering. "That people sometimes focus so much on questioning influence that they forget to recognize intention." The room grew quiet again. "For most of my life," Oprah continued, "my intention has been simple, to tell stories that help people understand themselves and each other." She paused. "And sometimes those stories change lives." The audience responded with a warm wave of applause. Sunny nodded respectfully. "No one can deny that impact," she admitted. "But public conversations will always include criticism." Oprah smiled slightly. "And they should." The honesty in her response surprised some viewers. "Healthy criticism," Oprah added, "is part of growth." The tension that had defined the earlier moments of the interview seemed to melt into something more reflective now. Sunny leaned back slightly in her chair. "You know," she said, "this might be one of the most honest conversations we've had on this show in a long time." The audience laughed softly. Oprah chuckled as well. "Well," she said playfully, "that's usually what happens when you invite two opinionated women to the same table." The audience erupted in laughter and applause. But behind the laughter, Everyone knew something significant had just happened. The interview was nearing its end. The producers behind the cameras began signaling that the segment was almost over. Sunny looked toward Oprah one more time. "Before we wrap up," she said, "I want to ask one final question." Oprah nodded. "What would you say to people watching right now who look up to you and want to create the same kind of influence in the world?" The audience leaned forward again. Oprah took a slow breath. Then she spoke with quiet conviction. "Don't chase influence." The room fell silent. "Chase purpose." Her words carried the weight of decades of experience. When your purpose is clear, influence becomes a byproduct, not the goal. The audience erupted into applause once again. Sunny smiled. "That's powerful advice." Oprah nodded. "And remember," she added, "every voice matters, not just the loudest ones." The producers counted down the final seconds of the segment. The camera slowly pulled back as the hosts thanked Oprah for joining the show. The audience stood for a standing ovation. But the real story was only beginning, because within minutes of the broadcast ending, clips from the interview began spreading across social media. Viewers debated the exchange. Some praised Sunny for asking tough questions. Others applauded Oprah for her calm and thoughtful responses. News outlets replayed the moment again and again. Entertainment websites ran headlines about the unexpected showdown. Comment sections filled with thousands of opinions. For days, the conversation continued. Some viewers called it one of the most meaningful discussions about media influence ever aired on daytime television. Others simply described it as unforgettable. But one thing was clear. The moment had struck a nerve. And for millions of viewers, the discussion between Oprah and Sunny had turned into something bigger than a television segment. It had become a conversation about power, responsibility, and the role of storytelling in shaping the world. Now we want to hear from you. What did you think about this intense exchange between Oprah Winfrey and Sunny Hostin? Was Sunny right to challenge such a powerful media figure? Or do you believe Oprah's perspective about purpose and storytelling carries the greater truth? Tell us your opinion in the comments below. And if you enjoy dramatic celebrity stories like this one, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Talk Battles for more explosive talk show moments, unforgettable confrontations, and behind-the-scenes stories from the world of television.